your wine and stand for the toast to the Suwannee. Shipmates, to a gallant ship, to her gallant crew, to her gallant air groups, in a time when we were young but stood tall, happy 50th anniversary and well done to the USS Suwannee. Remain standing for the invocation. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we who are here assembled to give Thee most hearty thanks for Thy care and protection in the past, in the present, and for the hope of Thy future. Endow us with the competency of Thy divine wisdom, that we may understand and reflect with credit to Thee and to our absent shipmates. Bless, we beseech Thee, our future endeavors to Thy glory. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Bon appetit. Up in Ohio, my name hadn't always been Tex. I was 14 years of age before I found out that my name wasn't Get Wood. I am so happy to see all of you here, because live, especially live, because if you hadn't have been here, I would have been here awful lonely, celebrating this 50th anniversary of our great ship, the USS Suwannee. Thank you for coming. I don't know whether I can wait 50 more years for another one like this. This has been a great convention. It's been a good sight, been a good selection, and excellent service. And boy, let's give the waiters and the waitresses a tremendous hand. You notice when you got up, there's a lot of appreciation to be done, and it would be only fitting that we start with our president. The big daddy of this whole thing, Eric Kitzman. Eric? This man, with determination and guts and imagination, has made the association what we've got right now. 284 in here right now. This man and his wife, Irene, have worked their hearts out, and I had the privilege when we were ready to nominate a new president. I nominated him right quick, and then I immediately followed it that nomination cease and he be nominated, elected by acclamation. I'm not so dumb as I look. Eric Kitzman.
Thank you, Tex. And I want to thank I won't get slow. I want to thank each and every one of you, gallant members of the Suwannee, that beautiful wives for making this such a successful evening. I'm sure that you don't understand the gratification that I feel. The work that went into this thing by our valiant people that followed each and every reunion to make it more and more successful. It was almost like going to a battle and coming out the winner. We're here tonight and I hope you all feel like I do. We're here to be amongst our shipmates again. I worked 28 and a half years for the Ford Motor Company in the aviation department. And they had a 50th anniversary in April. They invited me up. I said, no, I can't make that. I've got to make the USS Suwannee reunion. Here I am. Credit is given for credit is due. And for the man who worked on this reunion, had a tough chore, all the way from Cleveland to Norfolk, he organized this. Almost an impossible job. But there's no such thing as impossible for a Suwannee. She proved that at sea. Charlie Zubik, the chairman of our reunion this year, I'd like to present this plaque in recognition of his valiant work. Charlie, would you step up here?
Got Mary's name on there?
Charlie, for a job well done, typical of a 4-0 operation. Thank you again. And I thank you all with a vote of confidence, a stand-up ovation for Charlie Zubik.
I appreciate that. And I know I have an agitator in the crowd. He's always saying, the only one that knows the word is my sister Mary Patterson. And I'd like to have my sister Mary Patterson stand. I want you to know there's a lot of details, a lot of detailed issues, and things that I never attended to, that I relied on her, and she did a marvelous job. And I certainly appreciate that. And when I looked at this plaque, and I'm sure that she will, I'll be placing it in an area of the house, and she will see it. And I know that she will appreciate it. I think so. There she's giving now. She's, you know how the brothers and sisters are. She's trying to give you a rough time. I will be brief. I don't intend to make any speeches. I'll be right to the point. The satisfaction I have received is this. The self-gratification, the gratification of knowing that all of you are here. Just to see you here makes me feel good. And that's why I was glad you were all that work. Thank you.
I don't know, but I could say one thing. As you notice, Eric was very emotional. And Buddy, if you don't think that you would be emotional, you get up and do what he's done, and then get up. those of you that were in Cleveland saw me emotional, because at that time you're speaking right from your heart. And there's no finer man than here. Our vice president was elected again, was Frenchie Gilchrist. And we've got some good officers that are working hard for the betterment of this association. And they're working for next year right now to make it improve more and more. You know, Frenchie is quite a man. When I came on the Suwannee, I was walking along outside there one day on the sidewalk, walkway. Hell, we Texans don't know anything. That's up, that's down. But there was Frenchie talking to Eric. Now, Eric's from Arizona, and they don't have just a whole hell of a lot of ocean frontage in Arizona, you know. And Eric was sitting there, and Frenchie was listening to him. He said, Frenchie, look at all, that was one of those days we were zigzagging across that equator. And he said, look at all that water out there. Frenchie says, yeah, and that's just the top of it. This is one of the greatest privileges that a man can have, of course, is to come up here and speak to his fellow shipmates. As I told you in Ohio, I respect and admire every one of you ship people. You're great people. You gave us 100%, and we tried to give it back. What a team we had. What a ship we had. You know, oftentimes you think that whoever makes up the rosters of these things and assigns these people to that place and this one to that one, they have a great knack for what we used to call a snafu. But when they put together the Suwannee and the people on it, they did one hell of a job. And then they turned around and they outdid themselves by putting the air groups on there. And I'm telling you, I don't think anybody ever worked together better than that ship and those crews for 13 months that I was on it, and for the 3 years that it flew and cruised, or a little longer than that. And I wish she was still here. I love the ship, and I know you do too. I've got 4 speakers for us. And I've just limited them all to less than 10 minutes, so don't y'all settle back down. And the first one I want is a ship's person. Then I want a spokesman for each one of the 3 air groups that the Suwannee had. And this first man is somebody who typifies the Suwannee. You all know him, you love him. Little bitty half-pint Jew boy from Lockhart, Texas. And we Texans stick together. We know him as Oscar Sirkis. He's the man that, in that movie about the hand that rocked the cradle, he's the helmsman. He was the man that steered the Suwannee through her perilous days in the battle. As you all know, he was blinded when the second kamikaze hit us. But he has more insight on the shipmates and the Suwannee than anybody. Oscar asked me, he says, I asked him to do this, and he says, Tex, I've got a question. I need some advice. I said, what's that, Oscar? He said, what do you do to prepare yourself to speak to a group like this? Do you read a philosopher? Do you read great quotations? Do you read the Bible? what do you do? I said, Oscar, that's very simple. Do like I do. Before I get up to speak, I check to be sure my zipper is right. I'm going to tell a story on Oscar, and the reason I want not only him, it's one that I told him and he loved. Oscar, being of Jewish descent, just got a big bang out of this story. And I promised him I'd tell it up in Cleveland, and I didn't. And he's never let me forget it. So I've got to tell it to you, so bear with me. In my little town of Crockett, in the late 30s, there was a Jewish family moved in there from Germany. And Hans Greenberg and his family moved in there. Hans was about my age. So we played football together, we played baseball together, we fished together. We did all the things that boys do. He went off to college and I go off to college. Then along comes the war. Meantime, he's got to be a citizen of the United States, but born in Germany. He joined the Air Force, and I'm smarter than that, so I joined the Navy. But Hans went on to become a fighter pilot also, just like I did. And they put him in the B-51s, sent him back over to England. And here he is, flying against his homeland, Germany. Well, when he came home, he had distinguished himself so brilliantly, had all the medals, shot out a ton of airplanes, outstanding record. So the whole, my little town, all 5,000 of us, decided we'd have a banquet. The mayor was the master of the ceremonies, and he was introducing Hans and says, after he got through, he said, Hans, I'd like to ask you, we know you were born in Germany, and here you're flying against your land of your birth. You're bound to have some feelings. Would you share an experience with us? Hans said, yeah. He said, one day I'm sitting in my bunker in England, and I'm thinking to myself, I know where there is a munition factory that nobody else knows. So if I can load my P-51 Mustang down with extra billy tanks, and put the bombs on, and fly low, and go through the mountains and everything, and come up and drop the bombs, and blow the munition factory up, I can help shorten the war. So sure enough, I do this. And I break out, and there's the munition factory. They don't even know I'm coming. I make the run, I drop the salvo of a bomb, fire it, blew it. Perfect. I'm very proud of myself. Now all I gotta do is get back to England by myself, and get him saved back. And it says, I'm flying along, and all of a sudden I look off to my left, and here comes 3 fuckers right straight at me. Well, when he says that, the ladies always, and so I looked to my right side, here comes 4 fuckers coming straight at me. He said, when I looked right ahead, here's 6 fuckers coming straight at me. Well, by this time, all the ladies are swerving and everything. The master of ceremony mayor gets up and said, I think I better clarify something. Says, when Hans says fucker, he's talking about the name of an aircraft manufacturer. Just like we have Grumman, Lockheed. Fokker is a manufacturer of an aircraft in Germany, World War I, World War II, Fokker 109s. Everybody knows about it. And when you're talking that these Fokkers are flying, coming at you, weren't you talking about the kind of aircraft? You said, nine, these Fokkers were flying Messerschmitts. All I got to do when I get lonely, if Oscar gets lonely, he calls me, and I'll tell it to him again. Now we have it on record, and you know about those Fokkers. From Lockhart, Texas, a very dear friend, and we all love, Oscar Sirkis.
dealing with from September 42 till I was carried off in 44. I'm going to start with the black gang. These were guys I think were terrific. Being down in the bowels of the ship and not knowing what's going on, but I tell you, when they ask for so many knots, you got them. I used to go down below there and wind up chronometers down there, and I used to go and see Mr. Caulfield, the engineering officer. And I asked questions. Boy, I told me that was the cleanest engine room you ever saw. There was a chief named Dirks, I guess some of you guys are in. What a place. You ask for something, you got it down there. I had respect for those guys for what they did. You know, it's easy for those Airedales up there to sit around. Well, these guys had to prepare the ship to get everything going. And we had to wind up and do this and get ready, make sure everything was in working condition. And then everything that started, well, I'd go, let's see, from the bow of the ship with the black gang, I'd go on the quarterdeck. There was your first division, your second division, your third division. These guys were painters, carpenters. They took care of the queen. They kept it neat, trim. And then, of course, on the hangar deck, you had your big aviation crew. And then, of course, when you came up to the bridge and the pilot house, I was there. I stood to watch on that ship from 1942. And it was my distinct pleasure to serve on the ship. Oh, I served under Jocko Clark, Mac Mahan, and Admiral William David Johnson, Captain Johnson. I got to know him pretty well after coming back to the States. And that man was one wonderful person. And the N Division, which I had the pleasure of being with some of the shipmates out here tonight. Davis was one of the chiefs there, Main Chief. I used to take my orders from him, Mr. Primo. I had watch on the bridge. I had to stand by when they make the takeoff, land, launching aircraft, taking destroyers for fueling. And I enjoyed it. I really did. I had a ball in that pilot house. I never had trouble. I remember when we were at the Gilbert Islands. We were there, I think, about 28 days. We zigged down across the Pickett Equator. I think about 26 or 27 times, or about 28 times. In all, I think, altogether it was about 64 times in all the time we did. But then, what got me? In the morning, when that gong would go off, General Quarters, man your battle station, you never saw a faster clicking crew than you saw on that morning. The gunners' mates knew where they were going, everybody had a position to go and they went. And I mean click, and all of a sudden you'd hear, make your reports to the bridge when everybody click, 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 and so much time, everything was ready. Then, of course, the flight deck crew getting ready to take off. In the dawn patrol, they really would get into the wind. We had a terrific aerographer get into the wind and the plane would take off. And we had a landing, I think the landing officer was Mishback. I never had trouble. All I had to do was turn into the wind, receive planes aboard. We had one fine crew. What a bunch of boys on that ship. Captain Johnson, after we get everybody aboard and head back into the wind after we recovered aircraft, and they went down into the hangar deck for fueling and rearming, he looked up to the flag, which was the Sangamon, I think, at that time, and the hoist would go up. Well done, 27. And I was proud. I used to see him throw on his chest. He was a happy man at that time. Oh, man, I used to like that guy. Now, I'm not going to talk too much. I haven't much to talk about it. But I can remember one thing. When I was taken off the ship, the last thing I remember was, God bless him, from afar, standing by and said, take care, shipmate, when they lowered me down and paid a little to send me over to the Bountiful. And that's the last time. But I kept in touch with everybody on this morning because, oh, what a ship. She was a queen. I'm telling you, I enjoyed it. For 2 years I served aboard it, and I wish I could have served more. I wanted so much to stay aboard that ship. In fact, when I was at the officer's wardroom, Davis and one of the other quartermasters came in to see me there many, many times, and then they transferred me to the hospital ship. But after that, I went back to the States, and they took me up to Philadelphia. And I had a ball, and then I got discharged in May 1945. But what's funny, the rehabilitation for the blind was not too good. The Army did a terrific job, but the Navy was kind of slow. White canes didn't mean nothing to people. They didn't know what that was for. And I kept telling them, they said, what ship were you on? I said, CVE 27. The best cotton picking ship anybody ever served. The Sangamon, and the St. Pete, 26, 28, 27 was the cotton picker. And I enjoyed that. And I'm going to tell you a little story and then get off. Please bear with me. My daughter called me from Killeen to tell me this story. President Bush passed away and his soul went to heaven. And he got up to the pearly gates, nobody was there. So he looked around and he saw a bell, so he punched it. And St. Peter appeared. And St. Peter said, yeah? He said, read my lips, I'm George Bush. So I said, I'd like to get into heaven. Well, he said, there's only one way you can get into heaven. If you've got a good record, you become in here. In the meantime, he said, there's a gold chair over there. Please sit down, and I'll be with you in a few minutes. And while you're waiting, would you like to speak to anybody? He said, I'm sure, Lord. He said, I'd like to speak to Moses. He said, who? He said, Moses, you know. The guy that gave the 10 Commandments. He said, yeah, what he says, St. Peter said, well, Mr. Bush, Moses doesn't like to speak to many people because he stutters. He said, well, let me see if I can get him. Snapped his finger, and the angel appeared. He says, go get Moses, please. Well, he was gone for about 10 minutes. The angel came back, and he whispered something in St. Peter's ear. St. Peter shook his head, yeah. And he turned around and said, Mr. Bush, Moses says he doesn't want to talk to you. He says, what's the matter? I said, Moses doesn't want to talk to you. He said, why? He said, the last time he spoke to a bush, he spent 40 years wandering in the desert.
Oscar Sirkis. You know, Oscar, we're talking about zigzagging up and down the equator there, and being the man on the helm, and Corkhill down in Blackwood, Blackgame. Corkhill called up there, and by this time he'd gone back and forth like this, and Corkhill would get punch drunk down there, you know. Boy. Called up there and said, who is the idiot that's steering this ship? Oscar just reached over there and whistled, whoo. Said, well, if you think you can do better, let's switch places. So Corkhill came to topside. Oscar went to the black room. And they were, after a while, it went on like that, and about an hour or two later, Oscar whistled in that thing and says, I'm sorry, I got to come topside. He said, I can't get the damn thing down here working. Corkhill says, no wonder, you idiot, I have run it aground. You don't have to worry about Oscar reading your notes, you notice that? Oscar Oscar has a special spot in everybody's heart, and we all love him, I do, and I know you do. Well, now there's nothing we can say enough for the ship personnel. There's no way. I wish we could, but I don't think you want to be here for another 2 weeks. Or that would be about as long as it would take us to really cover the thanks that should be given to each and every man on the USS Suwannee. What a crew. Air groups. The first air group that came aboard the Suwannee was Air Group 27, same number as the ship. I sent out a bulletin to all of them, and we've got quite a few here. Everyone with 27, hold up your hand. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Thank you very much. You were the ones that took the Suwannee to battle. You blooded her first. You did a fine job. I don't know whether Jocko got turned going the wrong way, and like Corrigan, you know, wrong way Corrigan, but you went to Africa instead of out to the South Pacific. But y'all did a great job over there. And you start setting standards that we had to meet, those that followed you. And you came back and you came to the Panama Canal and you started working over there. You were the ones that first started the fight back against the Japanese. You worked against the aircraft, and in my opinion, the first pilots of the Japanese were very, very good. Where they began to, as the war went along, I think they deteriorated, and I think the American pilot got better. But when you went up against them, you went up against the best that Japan had, and you did a great job. You were based on Guadalcanal. You fought, you went to Raval, and you went over there, and you had lost some good men. I don't know, and I can't speak for Air Group 27 because I wasn't there. But I often wonder, and if I'm wrong, correct me. While you were operating off of the Suwannee, I don't think we had a single aircraft shot down by a Japanese aircraft. We didn't in 60 and we didn't in 40. What about 27? Did you or did you not? I know you lost men on Guadalcanal when you shore based. And we all lost people to any aircraft. Did not. Boy, do you realize what a record that is for a carrier? That we had never had another airplane to shoot one of our pilots down? Fantastic. Our speaker tonight is a 27 pilot, Spike Peglow. You probably know him. I do. But they had to start off, if you realize that we're just getting into a war, that we had to develop new tactics. You can't fight with World War II with World War I methods. It didn't work. So we had to devise and improvise and work out. These pilots of 27 certainly deserve a hell of a lot of credit for the strategies that were developed and implemented and to be a success. Spike has been a faithful attendant to our reunions, and I personally am deeply grateful to him. I'm grateful for every one of you people that are here. It just makes me feel that what I did and where I'm living is just makes life a little bit better. And you're part of it. It's a privilege to be associated with other air groups that I don't know anything about, because I admired what you did. Ladies and gentlemen, Spike Peglow.
I'm proud to be here. I mean, over the years I've had achievements, but I think we're all proud to be members of Suwannee. Not crewmates or shipmates, but friends. We turned to Suwannee, we turned our hands, and we were helped by everybody else. The whole point was that we were all working on a common purpose, and we all knew what it was. And we were fortunate in our first group. I have to pay a little homage to Jocko Clark, who was a good leader and a good captain, and the Commander Nation. We had, most of you probably here knew him. But Tex was wrong about snafu. Jocko Clark was standing before the bridge. Nobody was allowed to have any snafu at all. His stare could stop a TVF in mid-flight. Commander Nation was a very thorough man. He believed in solid training, and everybody did exactly what he wanted done. And that was important to us. All of us knew that we had a common purpose. I'm proud to be a member of the Corps of Suwannee. And I hope that we'll always remember it. In spite of the Suwannee's gone, we're survivors, and we're proud of it. Thank you.